tried to think of something quippy for this intro, but I got nothing. Not because of anything bad. It's just simply this movie was great. Okay, you guys, so the main reason that I was drawn to see this movie is because I did a reaction to his stand-up bit about the machine. Anybody who is a fan of Bert Kreischer, stand-up comedy, stuff like that, is probably very familiar with this story of his. And so I saw they were making a movie about it. I saw portions of the trailer, or maybe the whole trailer, and it looked hilarious. And then my theater had so it opens on Friday. Well, as of right now, it is Friday, May 26th. It opens today. This is not going to go up on Friday, I don't think. I'm not going to have time to edit it. I am going to be occupied all day, pretty much Friday and Saturday. So anyway, it opened at my theater the day before, Thursday. It was a live streamed premiere, basically, was what it was. And I took a couple pictures. Maybe I'll slap them up on the screen here while I'm talking. But it was a live stream video showing the people milling outside the theater. There were these crazy funny games going on. It was showing Bert talking with, Tom Segura and some other people, and just him drinking like crazy and getting emotional. Actually, he is, he cries a lot when he gets very touched by something. And I thought that was kind of funny in a good way. Then he goes in the theater, he talks for about 15, 20 minutes or so. 10, 15, whatever. He talks, does this little stand-up thing, talking about the movie and thanking people. He got teary-eyed again at the end, started weeping, and then in order to make it stop, he downed some more alcohol. And then there was a technical issue, and we waited and waited and waited for it to start. And finally, I called the management and asked them if there was a problem there. And so finally, they got it taken care of, but I mean, it was delayed and then by the time they started it had already progressed. The movie had already progressed, and so then they had to stop it and go back. So I got started late on it, didn't get out of the theater until just before midnight. And I took notes, not a crap ton, but I took more than I expected. And I'll tell you that I did not expect to enjoy this movie as much as I did. Now, I figured I would like it, but I didn't expect to really enjoy it, like a lot. And I don't know if Bert Kreischer has acted in anything before, but he did a pretty doggone good job in here, you guys. I mean, there was so much heart to this movie, and maybe that was what I was going to lead with. This movie had heart. In the midst of all the goofiness and the insanity going on, there were some moments, some touching moments, some messaging that was being delivered in the midst of all this insanity that I really appreciated. So I'm going to start going through my notes. I was talking about, I was taking notes during the live stream when it was showing before he goes into the theater for the movie to begin. Tom Segura and the crowds that were milling about. Mark Hamill was there. He introduced his parents to Mark Hamill. Dane Cook, he mentioned Dane Cook and Jim Jeffries in the audience as he was coming into the theater. And of course, he had to take his shirt off when he was talking. I don't know why this is a thing. I really rather not glance too much at his beer gut, but you can't help it. It's right there. But that's part of his thing. That's like part of his persona. And that was something that was in the movie. That was it's kind of like, think of it as like Superman taking his shirt off and he's got his suit. This is kind of like in reverse. Him taking his clothes off and bearing his big fat belly. That's like his Superman suit. It's funny. Anyway, it's a thing in this movie for sure. He also directly addressed people in the theater. He asked for us to support the movie and to talk about it. And I have no problem supporting this movie because it was fun. And I think it's something that is definitely worth seeing if you like comedy, if you like action. I felt like this was a really good blend of the two. Yes, it got pretty goofy, like obviously unrealistically goofy during some terrible moments, because there's quite a bit of violence in here. This does not pull any punches when it comes to that. But I felt like it was handled really well. And as the movie's progressing and things are going on, and it becomes not so much about this romp through Russia looking for something, it also becomes about other deeper themes such as fatherhood and trying to make something of yourself and trying to come back from your mistakes, stuff like that. There was some, in my opinion, good and important messaging that was also part of this movie. Okay, what else? Bert said that he gave up his left arm for this movie, and then he explained, it was something along those lines. He explained, well, what happened is he said he did his stunts and he hurt his arm, and I think he said he had to have surgery or he injured it or something. So I was like, wow, okay. I mean, he's not a stuntman, but he hurt himself. Anyway, the dude who played young Bert, I thought he did a really good job. I have seen him before, I just don't remember where. So what else? Oh, yes. I had written down at some point when it was maybe about midway through, and it just occurred to me that this was a story that was well constructed, and it had these flashbacks that were pertinent to what was going on. And I felt like the writing in here was pretty solid. I don't know who wrote this screenplay. I don't know if Bert had a hand in it. He told the story a little bit about how the movie came to be. And basically the premise is, this was the pitch he gave for like 3 movies. He said he gave a pitch for 3 movies, and then he talked specifically about his pitch for The Machine, which was his story of what happened when he was in Russia, and then being afraid later as an adult that the mafia was going to come looking for him or something like that. And I can't remember if that was a line he threw out like he was being half serious, or if that was his vision for a potential movie. Anyway, that was what they went with, and that's the framework. The basis for this is the story of what happened with him in Russia is told in flashback and blended in very nicely with what's happening in present day. And it does, like his actions back in Russia in 1999. Well, it said in the picture here 99, I thought, but he specifically mentions 98. So I don't know if his trip in Russia was supposed to take place in 98 through 99, or they got something's mixed up here, or maybe I'm just reading it wrong. It is late. So his actions during his involvement with the Russian mob on the train, it does come back to bite him in present day. And not only that, but his alcoholism. Now, I don't know if he's really an actual alcoholic. Well, if he is, he's not dealing with it very well, because there you go, Russia 1999. He's a very heavy drinker. He may not be an actual full-fledged alcoholic, but they kind of reference that in here. And then they weave in the made-up parts of this story, which was stuff going on with his family. His mom is dead. His father's a carpet salesman, as opposed to his father being like a lawyer in real life. And his mother is very much alive. And issues with him and his daughter, and going to therapy. Now, I don't know, maybe he does go to therapy. I have no idea. I don't know how much of those sorts of elements in the movie are taken from his real life. Maybe. I don't know. But certainly the stuff that was going on with the mafia, the Russian mob coming to look for him, and this girl coming and taking him, and she wants him to help her find something that he took when he was on the train. So this crazy adventure happens as a result of that, and his father comes along, and during all of that stuff that was going on, he and his father, they have this history, and they're working through things, and it's quite comedic. And Mark Hamill was fantastic in here. He is so funny, and his voice, I mean, sometimes I swear I could hear the Joker in there. It was just the way he does his voice, really funny. I wrote he references Tom Segura in here at least once, and then there is a scene where these cars have pulled up to this place. There's like, I don't know, I can't remember, it was like some sort of, there was graffiti on the walls around them, and there was the phrasing, Tom is fat, and I noticed it, and at first I was like, what's funny, and people in the audience laughed, and then later he specifically mentioned Tom Segura, and so I then concluded, oh, that's about Tom. Now, Tom doesn't look fat, because he was there and he didn't look fat. So I don't know if it's like sort of a joke between them or if he did used to be fat. Honestly, don't remember. I did do a Tom Segura reaction at least once, and I honestly do not recall. Anyway, references with regard to weight, references to Bert Kreischer's weight are very heavily played upon here. It's often referred to him having titties and being fat, and it's funny. It's funny. It's true, and it's also funny. And the comedy in here, sometimes it can be slapsticky and crazy. In the midst of crazy violence, there's also this funny stuff that's happening, and death is happening, and you're laughing. I mean, it reminded me of the sort of comedy in Tucker and Dale versus Evil, Cocaine Bear, that sort of thing where it's like it's a comedy, but also sort of like this thriller, and there's death happening and violence happening and injury happening, and yet the way it's carried out is really comedic, and that was the case in here. I wrote also that there was depth in here. There was a really well-written line of dialogue in here that I liked so much, but I didn't remember it all. By the time I pulled my phone out of my purse, because I was like, had my phone in my purse to kind of keep the light of the phone covered, and I didn't want to lose track of what they were saying, so I lost the exact quote, but it was basically something along the lines of finding balance between these different parts of ourselves. Because, you have Bert the machine, you have the machine, and then you had Bert Kreischer, and they were at odds with each other because it was causing this conflict in his family life and his, things that were going on with his drinking and all that stuff. And there was this really good moment that he had with one of the characters in there where they were talking with each other. And it was just very heartfelt sort of, there was comedy woven into it, especially comedy about the show Family Matters and Urkel. But at the same time, it was very, some very deep meaning that was going on and some good messaging. And also I appreciated the messaging about fatherhood and us as people trying to better ourselves, just good fathers or fathers that just keep trying to get better despite the mistakes that they make, things like that. And this is something that we can all take to heart. It's not just about fathers. It's not just about, like, let's say even men. It's just people in general. But the thematic elements of this movie very heavily deal with father-son or father-child relationships. That is a theme in here for sure. I also appreciated that it was dealing a lot with his own issues, his own insecurities outside of his whole persona of the machine and the journey he goes on to find value in himself. I like that. Yeah, it was just, there was only one sort of con that I had, and that was, or maybe okay, it has to do with injury. There's an injury that this guy gets, and I just don't see how in the world he was still walking around or even fighting afterwards. Maybe, I guess he was just lucky and it didn't hit a vital organ. It could have. Then there was another injury that happened where there was something that had gone through someone's leg and it was pulled out, patched up, whatever, but then the next day this person is walking with no discernible limp or even acting like they ever got hurt. That stuck out at me because you notice things like that. But other than that, I really enjoyed this movie. The Russian girl, gosh, I don't even remember her name now. Shoot, don't remember her name. She was excellent. She was so much fun in here. I loved how she played her part. This balance between she was badass and scary and like absolutely did not hold back when it came to violence, and yet she could be really, really funny at times, and a lot more depth to her character than you would think. She wasn't just your typical sort of bad Russian person, baddie or whatever. Yeah, she was really well written. I liked her character. I liked the dynamic between him and her and him and his father. Just a great job. I felt like Tom Segura, like I already said, Tom Segura, oh my gosh, I was late. I felt like Bert did a really good job. Great balance of comedy with some sincerity or some serious moments in here. And I thought it was handled really well. So yeah, I would encourage anybody who likes him, who likes comedy, who likes the whole thing, the whole story about the machine, to go check this movie out. And I think that you'll hopefully will enjoy it. This was really solid. I would be surprised if most people who watch this absolutely hate it, unless you're just not a fan, like at all, of comedy. I'm not really a fan of comedy, but this is comedy and action mixed together. And I am a fan of that sort of thing. So yeah, love this movie. It had heart, surprising amount of heart. And I'm so glad I went to go see it. I almost thought about canceling just because the timing, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so late and blah, 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 blah. But I'm glad I saw it because I'm glad I also was able to see the stuff that happened before the movie started, these little moments. There was this, not a scene, it was like before the movie started, the crowd outside, and he's talking with Tom Segura, and he's and dropping he's dropping all the C bombs on him, and so I think that's what he was saying. But yet at the same time he was crying and hugging him. So it just he's funny. I need to watch more of his stuff. I think The Machine was the only one I saw, but after watching this movie, I have much more appreciation for him as a comedic talent, and yeah, liked it. Can't say that enough. Liked it. Anyway, if you guys are planning to see it and you get around to seeing it, let me know what you think. If you thought it was as good as you expected, if you weren't all that crazy about it, or if you just thought it was meh. Anyway, I thought this was just surprisingly good, surprisingly solid. And yep, I don't have anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I got things I got to do. So that's it, you guys. Adios.